I think that folks in Canada should check out the lovefoodhatewaste.ca website. That website is really great because it has a lot of different tips and strategies and recipes. There's really fun people and celebrity chefs doing, cool videos. That is basically Canada's version of the Love Food Hate Waste campaign that was first launched in the UK. And so, in a nutshell, if I were to just mention a few things that eaters can do to reduce their food waste, the first thing is eat your food. Eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it. The one thing for me is when I think of leftovers, I actually think of that as already made food that I probably, with a little twist of this and a little twist of that, you can make and transform into new food. So I think the one thing that I've noticed since the pandemic is there's more time to cook. And a lot of people are posting on Twitter of, photos of them making sourdough bread and a lot of different pies and interesting food galore. So I think that this kind of innovative, creative way of thinking about food is a really good first step to make not wasting food fun, because I find that when I try new things, that's when I make food waste not about you just have to waste, you have to stop wasting food, but it's really about doing something fun. But of course, the number one thing about not wasting food is also to just buy what you need, and a good way to do that is to have a plan, to have a budget, to also think about your week kind of, or maybe if like for me, I'm lucky because I have a grocery store very close by my condo, so just walking distance. So I find that I kind of plan my meals like as a kind of a 2-day, 3-day slot. So I buy what I need for those 2 or 3 days, and then I would get some more. I'm not really focused on like really stocking up a lot of food. But of course, a lot of things have changed during the pandemic, right? And so if you need to stock up food, a good way to reduce food waste is to get a lot of the frozen food, because that lasts a long time. So you're not going to get spinach that you can only eat half and then the other half will wilt in the refrigerator. So frozen fruits and vegetables and protein also can go a long way to reducing food waste. That day is very complicated. Well, I think in some sense, you want to think that reducing food waste is easy, but there's a reason why we have so much food waste, and that's because when a lot of things in your life, come into play, children, time scarcity, being busy, stress, a lot of those things can impact the way you consume food or purchase food, right? We know about kind of emotional, like binge eating or emotional buying. So all of that is kind of tied into food. So with me, because I have my kids, my 3 kids, a lot of it has to do with like really trying to involve them into the whole cooking and buying process. So asking them, what do you want to eat? What kind of, like knowing what food they like. And sometimes like if I really want them to try something new, only buying a very little amount of that. But I would say that, that's my personal thing as an eater, right? Some of the things that I do with my kids. But what I think that I'm really excited about that we've done as a neighborhood. So my neighbors and I have started a bulk buying group with a farmer. And so this particular farmer, local here in BC, he lost a lot of his restaurant clients because of the closure. And so, that food would have otherwise, he probably would give away a lot, but a lot would go to waste if if there was no other market except for the restaurants. So we started a bulk buying group, and we've been able to buy a significant amount of food from this farm, and this farm has created more relationship with other eaters. So I think before, my kind of like food world was very limited to maybe the supermarkets and the occasional farmers market, but now I have like weekly deliveries of hyper local food from like a local farm here just down the mountain. actually differing studies, and of course that also depends on the timing when you conduct the study. So the one study that talks about food waste increasing it happened when people were hoarding, when they were just kind of like buying like crazy. You saw about the image with people getting like a whole grocery cart full of meat, people stocking up on so many different things, and like your fridge can only contain so much, and food is perishable unless you buy the hyper processed food, which can last a very long time. So but actually studies in Greece and studies in the UK have shown that because people are home more, they are able to actually manage their food a lot better. They're able to kind of like check back and see what they have. They're spending more time to actually cook. And so the one thing that becomes an issue usually pre-pandemic is when people buy and people cook, but then people also eat out. And so they're not eating the food that they bought at home. But because people can't eat out as much, they actually have to eat the food that they bought at home. So there's like differing studies depending on the time. But I think in general, some studies from different countries are saying that people are eating more of the food that they're making at home. There's a lot of media articles recently talking about how pigs are being euthanized, how milk are being dumped, how strawberries are being fed to cows because the strawberry farmers can't get the strawberries to the market. And there's a lot of stories around that. And I think what's really important to remember is that the global food waste issue is not very new. The book that kind of made it mainstream in 2009, they were and the FAO report in 2011 talks about how anywhere between 30 to 50% of the food that is produced for human consumption gets wasted. About $1 trillion worth of food annually. And so I think that, so what I'm saying about that is like, while it might not be media news, these issues around the food supply chain, around what's being wasted, farmers in Kenya not being able to, wasting 60% of their crops because the green bean has a little curve on it or is a little bit too short or too long, that is shocking, but that's kind of old news, right? And so this, the fact that this is so shocking to people particularly is because of the fact that a lot of people are unemployed. They have food insecurity issues are growing, lineups at food banks are growing. So there's this kind of why aren't we not making use of the food that we have right now? And the thing that I would say is that why haven't we solved this issue? And it's been happening for a long time. When you have this kind of like paradox of 1 billion people hungry, and then you have on the other side 30 to 50% of the food being wasted. It has been with us for a long time, and I think it's exacerbated now because just people are becoming more sensitive to it, because their circumstances have also changed. Well, I think what's important, and I keep on going back to the pandemic, over and over again, because I think that's the context that we're living in right now. I think we realize now, like, people that didn't think food mattered, in a society, or that food mattered in city building, or that food mattered as a right, are starting to realize, oh, wait, food actually matters. And I think that's because for a very long time, and I think even still now, food has been so commoditized to the point that it's been divorced from everything that is embedded, everything from identity to the landscape, to the biodiversity, to the ecosystem. And so what I would say is that, food matters because not only does, do we depend on our lives on it, but it's what makes our environment healthy, when we take good care of our food system. It's also what makes our society resilient, and will be able to survive the storm. I think that what we realize with all of this is that we do not have a resilient food system, especially when food banks are relying on corporate food waste and so retail waste, and retailers are actually running out of food because of the problems with the distribution supply chain and people hoarding and shortages. So as we see, food truly matters. So when we waste that, we're also wasting energy, resources, labor, everything that goes into food production. And yeah, and that's just a shame.